Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to an all-new Talkin Movies. I'm your host, the real Geno Reynolds, and today we're going to be talking about a movie that is based on the reboot of a show that I loved from Cartoon Network. We're going to be talking about Teen Titans Go to the movies. Robin dreams of only one thing, getting his own superhero movie. After many failed attempts to have one made about him and being passed over for other we'll just say superheroes, he decided that he and the Teen Titans need to start taking the whole superhero thing more seriously. For starters, they need themselves an arch nemesis. Enter Slade. Look, back in the day, I was a pretty big fan of the original Teen Titans cartoon. Sure, it started a little slow, but it picked up for me pretty quickly. The stories of Robin versus Slade, Raven versus her father Trigon, Tara and Beast Boy's relationship, and other stories just made that show awesome. Then Cartoon Network canceled it. I, like many of the show's fans, were honestly pretty pissed at Cartoon Network and Warner Brothers for that decision. Then they announced Teen Titans Go, which was a more silly version of the characters, aiming for a much younger audience. Now, long story short, I can enjoy the show okay if, say, my kids wanted to watch it, but it's not a show that I would just watch on my own. When I heard that a movie was going to be coming out based on the show, I figured it would mimic something like some of the other kiddo animated shows and just be an extended version of the cartoon. But then there was a glimmer of hope. The trailer for Teen Titans Go to the Movies came out, and while it seemed like it was similar to the cartoon, it also looked like it was channeling some clever humor as well. While this made me hopeful that the movie was going to be good, I also have been burned by DC animated movies before. Does anybody remember Batman and Harley Quinn? It was based on probably the greatest Batman cartoon ever, Batman the Animated Series, but it took a nice big dump all over the source material. I guess what I'm saying is, even though I had my hopes up, I had my guard up as well. Before I get into my review, I have to tell a story about the screening that I went to. There are a group of friends that come to a lot of the press screenings that I get invites to. Two of them were there for this screening, and before the show I was talking to one of them, and he said to me something along the lines of, If this ends up being just like the TV show, we might as well walk out. I bring this up because the two of them stayed for the whole movie and really enjoyed it. I know this because they wouldn't shut up with the running commentary during the entire movie, but that's a story that will ruin my good mood, so I'll just drop that annoyance for now. What I'm trying to say is that those of you that have fears that this movie will be an annoying mess, there's no need to fear. The Teen Titans are here. This movie, while simple in its plot, is pretty fantastic when it comes to just about everything else. Before I get into the good stuff, I'll get my gripes about the movie out of the way first. My first issue with the movie is that I thought it went to the musical number well just a bit too much. Now, don't get me wrong, the stuff they do is pretty fun, and some of it is even genius, but I felt like they relied on it a bit too much. Another issue is one that carries over from the show. The use of silly humor may not overstay its welcome, but the jokes based on things like farts and butts, way too many jokes about butts, get in the way of the good humor. I know that this and the music is there more for the kiddos than it is for the adult fan, so that stuff gets a pass because the rest of the movie's humor is so good that it more than makes up for the silly stuff. One last thing. While I did enjoy Will Arnett in this, I would have liked to have seen Ron Perlman return to voice Slade as he did in the original cartoon. There would have been the connection of him with the original cast, who still voiced the main characters, and I would have liked to hear how he would have handled the comedic side of the character. Perlman was pretty menacing on the original cartoon. I thought that Arnett would have voiced Batman before any other character, given his ties to the character in the Lego movies. That being said, Arnett was a producer on this movie, so I'm sure he wanted to be involved with a bigger role, and I don't really remember Batman saying too much in this movie. The movie's smart humor is what really makes it tick. The jokes in this movie take a ton of shots at the DC universe as a whole, whether it be something the characters are saying to imagery in the background. There is always something that they are poking fun at. It was like Warner Brothers finally stopped taking themselves so freaking serious and allowed the animation studio to take things that we the fans have been saying for years and lets us all have a good laugh at it. Jokes about the Green Lantern movie, the idea of seeing Jonah Hex making fun of someone for having a bad movie, having Nick Cage voice Superman, and many other bits of humor, some being some pretty deep cuts, really hit a home run with me. Not only does the movie make fun of the DC universe, but it takes fun jabs at a ton of other pop culture things as well, through the use of jokes, music, etc. Marvel seems to be the biggest target, but it isn't in a mean way. All the jokes are pretty good-natured and fun, so it's not like Warner Brothers was trying to throw shade at the more successful Marvel studios. There is a ton of different references to things such as Back to the Future, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and other Warner Brothers properties, and many, many others. And the majority of them land spectacularly. Best of all, the movie makes fun of itself. While you're watching this, you'll find yourself about to call the movie out for something predictable or super silly, but then the movie will beat you to the punch and then gives you a wink. In a way, this movie felt like a PG-rated Deadpool movie. Big surprise there that they'd want to draw inspiration from a moderately more successful franchise. The plot itself, as I mentioned, is pretty simple, but in all honesty, it doesn't need to be overly complicated. It's all about knowing what's really important, not being selfish, friendship, and being there for the people you care about. Sure, the premise is simple, but the execution of everything around that premise is fantastic. The voice cast is also pretty fantastic. You get the cast from the main characters that you already know and love, plus a lot of fun and or genius choices for others. I already mentioned Nick Cage's Superman, but in all honesty, I don't want to really talk about any of the others. There are a few cameo voices that, if I said who played them, would ruin a ton of great jokes. Just trust me on this one. Before the movie begins, there is a Batgirl short that is also pretty funny and sets the mood for the fun time you are about to have with the main film. There is a ton of in-jokes with this short as well, especially for fans of Schumacher's Batman and Robin. Let's just say they're very nice. I meant to say nice. Lastly, while there is an after-credit scene that is a fun callback to a running joke in the movie, it's the mid-credit scene that you should really be excited about. I'll just say that it is a perfect way to reward fans for supporting this movie. And you should support this movie, not only because the mid-credit scene, but because this is just a really fantastic movie that finds a nice balance for both the kiddos that like the show Teen Titans Go, and for us fans that like our humor a little more intelligent. There is something here for every fan of the comic book movie genre, and this movie is one of my favorite comic book-based movies of this year so far. That's going to be all for this edition of Talkin Movies. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the Real Geno YouTube channel, like this video, and if you have anything to say about this movie, please feel free to comment in the section below. Until next time, I'm your host, the Real Geno, Geno Reynolds. See you later.